want to tell you a story about this property in Sarasota, Florida. Kim Donahue, the listing agent, was able to get this one over the goal line and close for the sellers. There was some financial stress here because the sellers had a job loss, and it was also a short sale listing that didn't start as a short sale listing. So like other markets in Florida, you have Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, Tampa, parts of the Panhandle, of course, Fort Myers and Cape Coral. Properties are sitting longer than they were 2-3 years ago, and it's a completely different market right now. So when the property isn't selling, the seller and the listing agent are forced to take multiple price reductions. This property started on the market at $435,000. Now, had it sold for that price, there would have been some money for the sellers at closing. They would have been able to pay their commissions and closing costs and make that loan whole. But the market wasn't saying that there was buyers out there for $435,000, so they had to take price reductions down and eventually do a short sale, and it sold for $330,000 as a short sale. Now, the $330,000 wasn't going to pay off the commissions and closing costs and cover that whole loan. So the seller didn't have the cash to bring the closing to cover that shortage. So we went to bat for the seller and the listing agent to work with the lender to take the loss on that loan balance. And when they do that, they always want to do a valuation of the property to make sure they're not taking unnecessary losses and that contract price with that particular buyer at that time was realistic. So the BPO agent came back with a valuation of $330,000. That's exactly where the contract price was on that property, and we thought that would be good. But they came back and said, we want $360,000 for the property. Now, this is where Kim saved the deal. So Kim had backup offers for this property, went to those buyers, and got a buyer back to the table because the first buyer walked because they don't want to pay more than $330,000. Of course, the bank's asking more than that, so she went to the backup buyer and got a backup buyer to close that property at $350,000, which is still a good deal for the buyer. And listen to what we did for the seller in that situation. So Kim was able to save the seller from a potential foreclosure sale. So they were able to sell their property with dignity and get them mortgage ready, assuming they take care of everything else with their credit in the next 2 to 3 years. They can get another loan again for home ownership, and was able to relieve them from the debt forgiveness. Sometimes there's a judgment that comes with that debt forgiveness that follows the seller. But in this particular case, we negotiated that judgment amount would not be in place, so we would relinquish that with the approval letter from the lender. And so the seller ultimately got out from underneath this property without having to bring cash to closing, salvage their credit compared to a foreclosure sale, and move on with their life. So a lot of credit to Kim Donahue for getting this one done. If you guys have a situation, you're a listing agent, you have a property that's not selling, or you're a seller of a house that's not selling, and you're holding at a price that the market is clearly saying they're not going to pay for, then you have to sell at a price that's not going to make that loan whole, and the seller doesn't have that cash to bring the closing, then that's going to be a short sale. Contact us at shortsalestart.com, do a free consult, and we can see if that house qualifies as a potential short sale. We can get you a commission and help your seller stop a potential foreclosure sale and get them out from underneath that debt.